Greetings, everybody. Welcome to our sacred Sunday sit. My name is Jessica Mingus. My pronouns are she, her, and I am very, very happy to welcome all of you here for our shared practice. In just a moment, our guiding teacher, Bart Van Melik, will take over. But before he does that, I am just going to share a little bit about the structure of our meeting today, and then we will get right into practice. We always begin with a guided meditation, which will last about 25 minutes. At 11 o'clock Eastern, we take a brief pause and reflect together on Dāna, the Pali word for generosity. And then Bart will go into his teaching for today. So every week we have a theme. Bart will share a little bit more about that as we start our practice. But we encourage you throughout the time that he is teaching, if you have questions or comments that you'd like to share with our group, the chat is open. So share anything that you'd like. When Bart finishes his teaching, which is around 11:45, at that point, we'll start to read through your comments and then give Bart an opportunity to respond. So all of your reflections are welcome. And also at 12 o'clock Eastern, we will transition into breakout groups. So we'll make those breakout groups 3 to 4 people this Sunday. And in those groups, you can come off of mute and continue to be in practice and reflection with a couple of fellow practitioners from our Sangha. So the goal of that time in a small group is for you to continue your personal reflection and then also to listen deeply to your fellow community members. So what we ask you to avoid is advice giving or asking personal questions. Really, the goal is to share from our I and then to listen to each other deeply and with compassion. So we always have 2 little rituals that we start with. The first one is we just like to know where you're zooming in from. So Bart often calls this our mini retreat, our Sundays together. And so the cool thing about CMC is that we have mini retreat centers all over the world. So I'll read out a couple of locations. And bear with me, everybody, because unfortunately, my laptop has decided to change professions. So it's not acting like a laptop anymore. It's decided it wants to be something else. I am hosting today from an iPad. So here we go. Ooh, so we have friends in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and South Georgia, Beth in Connecticut, Mariana is in Mexico, friends in Brooklyn Heights, in New Jersey, North Carolina, upstate New York, and of course the Upper West Side, CMC's hometown. So welcome all of you. And then before Bart takes over, we always give each other a community wave. So if you are on camera, just give our Sangha a hello. Maybe you want to look for a new face, an unfamiliar name, and send that person a little bit of extra care and warmth. And for those of you on the phone, you have lots of very kind eyes and waves welcoming you too. So, dear Bart, good morning.
Good morning, dear Jessica. And thank you for being so flexible with a dying computer and now an iPad. It kind of really points to our topic for this week, and that is to be creative in how to hold difficulty and experiences. This practice is not just about being aware of what's going on in your life and in the moment, but also having an active stance on what can I do? What's helpful? That's actually a question I'm going to ask you throughout today's little mini retreat, to reflect in the moment, what's helpful right now in relating to experience. And one thing that I find helpful is when I'm noticing some difficulty, I sometimes just keep repeating in my mind, welcome. I'll just repeat that a few times. Welcome. If my computer died, Jessica, and I would be all like, ugh, if I can remember to be mindful of the ugh, sometimes it's so helpful to go, welcome, welcome. It always makes me realize that what feels that's in the way is the way too. And so in the guided meditation today, I'm going to ask you to not only be present, mindful of what's going on moment to moment, but sometimes inquire into what's helpful right now. Is it perhaps helpful to go welcome? And later in the guided meditation, I also invite you to notice change. Sometimes that feels so helpful to me in releasing whatever feels stuck. So let's get started. What's helpful right now in terms of your body? Just checking if it might be useful to move it a little bit, to switch the video off or on, to hydrate the body a little bit. Would it support your body to stretch it a little bit? Maybe you want to orient yourself in the space you're in. Just getting a sense of, oh yeah, this is my little Dharma hall right now. Just prepping yourself for practice. Having this active inquiry, what's helpful or supportive in assuming a body posture? Sometimes just settling back a little bit, moving your upper body a little bit behind is helpful for me. Or scanning the body for any holding. What's it like in the jaw or the way you might be closing your eyes? Notice you have an active doing component in meditation as well. Maybe the most helpful thing to do is to remember to be mindful. That's all it takes. Remembering to be mindful. Just take some time to become familiar again with a little ongoing mindfulness, presence. What is mindfulness telling you about the body? We can be mindful of the body and its sensations. We can also become aware of the state of the human mind. Do you recognize the state of your mind, the weather in your mind? Have you experienced it before? Might it be helpful to give it a name or color, an image? What if you were to whisper to this mind state, welcome, welcome. This is what it's like to be you. What's helpful right now in being mindful, meeting this experience with kindness, with curiosity and care? What would it be like to take some time and know you're breathing? Directing attention to feeling your body breathe. What happens if you actively start becoming more mindful of sounds? It takes some effort to receive sounds nearby, far away. And being mindful of hearing, it can be very helpful to notice the changing nature of sounds. Now giving yourself permission to experiment. What's helpful? Using the anchor of the breath, the anchor of hearing, or maybe just being receptive to experiences as they come and go. Maybe you need to change your body position. What supports this ongoing presence? Maybe the most helpful is to pause and to remember to be mindful. Maybe it's to whisper welcome. Or really seeing and feeling the change of thoughts, body sensations. Trusting your intuitive wisdom. As we're slowly coming to a close. Just noticing, what's it like right now in this unique moment? Yes, the bell will sound in just a few moments.
Thank you, Bart. Ah, so we always take a moment after our sit together to reflect on Dāna, the Pali word for generosity. Um, and so often when I share some reflections, I find that thinking about generosity leads me also to think about community and how community is built. Um, and then I take to my books and I find little excerpts to share with you all that resonate with me as I sit with you um, in meditation. And today, the poem that I found is one by Walt Whitman called "O Me, O Life." And I'll read it in just a moment. And I think what really struck me about it is that it spoke to the real power of small acts, right? And kind of the modesty of getting to live and contribute, but also the importance of it. But I'll share this poem And then after that, I will also share a couple of different ways that you can contribute or help us weave this beautiful tapestry that is CMC. So I'll share that information after I finish the poem. And it goes like this. O me, O life. O me, O life, of the questions of these recurring, of the endless trains of the faithless, of cities filled with the foolish, of myself forever reproaching myself, for who more foolish than I, and who more faithless, of eyes that vainly crave the light, of the objects mean, of the struggle ever renewed, of the poor results of all, of the plodding and sordid crowds I see around me, of the empty and useless years of the rest, with the rest me intertwined. The question, oh me, oh sad recurring, what good amid these, oh me, oh life? Answer, that you are here, that life exists, and identity, that the powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. So I will share some information in just a moment, ways to contribute a verse to this beautiful community that we build together. Thank you so much. And dear Bart, looking forward to your teaching.
Oh me, oh my, oh life. Mm. That actually makes me think of a very famous Zen story, Jessica. It's very short. It goes like something like this. It just comes up spontaneously. Student asks teacher, how to meet this mind that's filled with craving and desire and aversion? How to meet this life that's difficult in these times of famine and war? Teacher replies, welcome. It's just that sense of, even when it's difficult, can we see we're still playing a part in this verse, in this life? And it actually really links well to our topic of today and this week. We're finishing a topic called the 4 Foundations of Mindfulness. And the last foundation or area of mindfulness is all about meeting experience as it is and then becoming creative and active in how to meet it, how to write a verse, how to meet also the difficulty of life. Thank you, Jessica. And thank you for holding the space so beautifully in the midst of a broken computer. Oh, I want to start with the words of the Buddha. It's always a good start. This is what he said. He said, just as in the great ocean, there's but one taste, the taste of salt. So in this Dhamma, in these teachings, there's but one taste, the taste of freedom. And as an outdoor ocean swimmer, I love this teaching because it's true. Every time I taste the ocean when I'm in it, it is salty. But I also find it helpful just to hear again, oh yeah, what is the purpose of all this? I was recently on a retreat and my dear friend and teacher, Devin Berry, he said, we don't really forget how to practice. We just forget sometimes how good it is. And even in this very famous discourse that we've been using in the last 4 weeks, there too, the Buddha talks about why this path, why meditate? I'll just quote him. He said that practitioners, this path of mindfulness is a direct path for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of unnecessary suffering and discontent, for acquiring the true method, for realizing complete unbinding of nibbana, namely these 4 areas of mindfulness. And it made me think of, it's important from time to time to ask yourself, why meditate? If you pause just for a moment and just maybe also check how your body is doing, you might have been in this position for a while. What comes to your mind if you just drop that question for a little bit? Why meditate? Why do you meditate? Is it like the Buddha to overcome sorrow, the releasing of dukkha, of suffering? Or to cultivate more compassion? Why meditate? Why being here in community? Once I was with my teacher, Joseph Goldstein, and he was teaching on this question of why meditate, and his answer was so moving. He just said, to make my mind my friend. That's why I meditate. And over the course of the last few years, I sometimes actually drop this question into my practice, especially if I don't want to. Oh, why meditate? Then my voice is like, why meditate? And I realize, I don't know if that's for you too, but the answer's not always the same. Once I asked the question, why should I meditate right now, when I was in an intensive care unit of an emergency room? And then the answer was, I just want to be a little more calm being with this extremely undifficult situation. And then I chose to be mindful of breathing. That was the most helpful thing I could think of. I remember sitting up straight in my bed, not lying down anymore, with all the wires and what have you. And I just started feeling the body breathe. I remember with every exhale, I would make the body a little more heavy. And then I would just keep repeating the word calm. Calm. Now that I was thinking about these teachings, I'm like, that was the first foundation of mindfulness that I chose to do, to be aware of the body. Why meditate when your mind is racing and maybe going down all kinds of loopholes and rabbit holes, or your body is not comfortable? Then for me, the answer sometimes is, see if I can feel it all with that supportive welcome. And see if I can really feel the changing nature of all that painful mental or physical stuff. And to attune to change, even in the midst of fear, it changes. And why I do that, why do I meditate in those moments? To get less stuck in all the stories about the fear or the pain. And so when you're mindful of how things feel, you're practicing the second foundation, mindfulness of feelings. I remember last week, Jane was also asking about falling asleep, and I sometimes often wake up in the middle of the night, and immediately my mind's on. It starts thinking. Sometimes it even feels like just a voice in my head is just talking. Maybe because of the dream, I don't know. The question then, why meditate when I wake up in the middle of the night, is to see if I can recognize this overthinking. Give it a name. So I'll just sometimes in the middle of the night go, oh, overthinking, worrying, craving to go back to sleep. I always try all to name it. That's the third foundation of mindfulness. Sometimes it's helpful to notice the state of your mind. And then when I really don't want to do all of that, I see if I can coach myself. You have some coaching lines too. I really hope you do. Like Joseph's favorite, I think, is he always says that it's okay, even when it's not okay, it's okay. Mine goes like this. So I wake up, let's say in the middle of the night, and I'll go, worry, worry. And then all of a sudden I'll go, this wants to be seen. And for some reason, that line, this wants to be seen, often creates a little more space around it. It's as if it tells me I don't have to figure out why I'm feeling this way. But I do know that causes and conditions led to me feeling this way. And sometimes it's just as simple as welcome. I often do that when I realize I didn't do something that's skillful and I kind of regret what I did. And it often comes back in meditation. Oh yeah, regret, welcome. And so for me, the answer why meditate, the answer to it always changes. And in the same way, I think we cannot meditate just in one way. A while ago, a friend of mine asked, who was also an avid meditator, says, I know quite a few techniques. How do I know which one is the most suitable? Which one to choose? And I said, I don't know. There's not really one answer. It really depends on the circumstances. But I do know that mindfulness just by itself is not enough. We need sometimes also to really bring in discernment, wisdom. I once had this visual insight. I don't have many visual insights, but once it felt like in my meditation as if I was in a dream and I was on a bus. The bus was going really fast and I was being aware of its surroundings. And then all of a sudden I realized no one is driving that bus. And then I realized I was holding the wheel in my hands. And it kind of, I went from fear to like empowerment. I am driving in my meditation. Not that there's a permanent self, but there's definitely an I that knows, oh yeah, let me go left, let me go right. And that's why this question, what is helpful, can be such a powerful reminder that you're not only being mindful and receiving and allowing experiences. In a way, we're all the bus drivers. So this week too, as I was preparing for this talk, I asked myself, why do I meditate? You know what came to mind? It might sound a little strange, but to feel powerful in the midst of uncertainty. That's why I've been meditating this week. To feel powerful in the midst of uncertainty. So just for the completion of our theme, this is the last element. Next week, we'll start with a new theme. This fourth foundation, it has a weird name. It's called mindfulness of Dhammas. And it's Dhammas without the capital D. It's with a small d. So it's not to be confused with mindfulness of the Dhamma, which is the Pali word for teachings or laws in nature. But it's related to it though. So Dhammas with a small d, it's often translated as mind objects, phenomena. But that doesn't explain much, right? This is the foundation of mindfulness of mind objects. It's more specific than that. And actually, it's almost impossible to teach in one talk about this particular topic, but I'll tell you more in a moment. What it's about is mindfulness of patterns of experience. Mindfulness of patterns of experience and starting to know how they come to be, but also how they pass away. And to know if these patterns of experience in our life are helpful or not, leading to suffering or not. So this last foundation takes some practice, some expertise, if you will. It's not only no longer being aware of what you are experiencing, but also starting to notice, how can I hold it that supports freedom? Or also noticing I'm holding it and it actually blocks it, creates more suffering. I heard a scholar once saying, this last area is being mindful through the Buddha's eyes. And so I was thinking how to frame this teaching into just a few helpful lines. And one that came to mind is, what would wisdom do right now? Just pause for a moment and maybe become mindful of the body or of feelings. Or you might recognize a mind state. Starting simple. This mind state you're having right now, it's conditioned. It doesn't just come by itself. Maybe you know what led you feeling this way right now. I'm noticing concentration by myself. And I know it's because of doing this Dharma talk thing, knowing there's your presence as well. There's joy in me that loves doing this. It all leads to, for me, concentration right now. So part of mindfulness of Dhammas is to start to see that there's always a cause and an effect. So last week we reflected on mindfulness of mind. That practice helps to name the weather of your mind. Let me just check right now. Is it stormy with restlessness? Or maybe foggy with sleepiness? Or completely clear and open? With mindfulness, clarity? Mindfulness of Dhammas lets us know, how is this weather in the mind forming? And also ultimately, what can I do maybe to support it, to allow it to pass? Let me give you an example. Let me go back to my middle of the night waking up. You can notice fear if that's the case. When you're mindful, you can also notice what thoughts lead to this emotion. For me, it's often like, oh, I won't be able to do all this busy stuff tomorrow. So the thought that starts, I won't be able to, oh yeah, that conditions fear. What if they're not going to like what I'm going to be doing, or that too? So then you start to see, oh yeah, these thoughts condition fear. But I also know, just for myself, one of my coaching lines, this wants to be seen right now. Let me say welcome to it. That will support the fear to go through me. That's me being the active bus driver. And so if we keep seeing these particular patterns, how they arise, but also what supports, especially difficulty to be released, that's this last area of mindfulness. And so one line that I find helpful, also in daily life, when I'm aware, is to just in my mind go, what is helpful right now? Especially when I'm all over the place, not knowing whether I should vacuum, do emails, brush my teeth. What's helpful right now? Now, the reason the fourth foundation is so big is because in the sutta, in the discourse, the Buddha put in a lot of lists. It's impossible for me to go all over these lists. So I kind of already tried to boil it down to really being active in your meditation practice. But I want to take out one teaching, though, which I think is brilliant. And here the Buddha is basically asking himself, what conditions lead to awakening? And he came up with 7 elements. And these elements, they build on one another. And I want to kind of touch upon them briefly because they bring in that sense of being the active bus driver, what's helpful. And I want to share it with you the way I meditate with them. And it's a lot, so don't worry if it feels like too much, because I've memorized them. But sometimes in my meditation, I'll go like this, so you can join if you like. I'll start with the first one. The first element that leads to full awakening. That's mindfulness. So I'll just go, is there mindfulness? Is there mindfulness right now? My answer then is always yes. And the Buddha says, when you're mindful, it's easy to become interested or curious. So then I'll go, is there curiosity? You could check right now, is there curiosity, a sense of willing to investigate? The Buddha says that that sometimes leads to feeling a little more energized. So then the third question I ask myself, is there energy? And I feel the energy in the body and the mind. Then the Buddha says that leads often to joy. So I also ask myself, is there joy right now? Sometimes there isn't, but sometimes it's just like a sense of contentment. Yeah. That often conditions, according to the Buddha, a sense of feeling relaxed. So then I'll ask, is there relaxation? Is it present? Sometimes when I ask the question, my shoulders drop. And the Buddha said that often leads to feeling concentrated, more stable. So I'll ask, is there concentration right now? Even when there isn't in that moment for me, just grateful that I asked. And then the last element that leads to awakening, the Buddha called it equanimity, feeling balanced. So then I'll go, is there equanimity? And not to force myself, but so sometimes through study, you get these lists really feel into you, and then you can make it your practice. So let me just let the Buddha speak for himself about seeing your experiences through the lens of these 7 factors of awakening. He said, and practitioners, how does a practitioner abide contemplating Dhammas in terms of these 7 factors of awakening? He said, here, practitioners, when the mindfulness awakening factor is present in her, a practitioner understands there's the mindfulness awakening factor in me. But when the mindfulness factor is not present in her, she understands there's no mindfulness awakening factor in me. But she also understands how the unarisen mindfulness awakening factor arises and how the arisen mindfulness awakening factor comes to fulfillment through practice. And that's a lot, so I'll pause here for a moment. Do you see what's going on? That in mindfulness of Dhammas, we recognize a state as part of a teaching, a helpful teaching. And we start to know what helps being mindful. For me, it's very simple. Pause, and I'm already mindful. Every time I remember, I'm mindful. And how do I train it to become interested, curious? And the instructions for all these 7 factors are exactly the same. The first thing that leads to awakening is mindfulness. The second one is to be interested or curious. Can you see how they connected? That when you are really mindful, you become a little more interested. So when you are experiencing something that might be difficult, it's actually that factor of interest or investigation that asks you, what is this fear made of? How does this aversion feel in the body? What feeds it? Last week, some of you also noticed that when you ask a lot, it might feel like analysis. It's not that, it's just his sense of curiosity. And some of you know my favorite line to bring in curiosity is to go, what would kindness do right now? Jessica, our ED, even said, maybe we should put that on a shirt, Bart, and sell them. What would kindness do? That's all bringing in that sense of curiosity, just like what's helpful right now. But the Buddha said, look what happens in terms of pattern of experience when you're interested and mindful. Does it make you feel more energized, engaged? And I've taught so many classes of meditation in middle schools in New York. And in one class, I was always the class following their mathematics. So they all came in like, Bart, school, it's boring. So what do you want to talk about? And one girl goes, I want to talk about boredom. And then I remember one student said, I like being bored. And even I was like, really? So we decided to meditate without me giving any instructions. He said, Bart, try to make your class really boring and I will meditate on it. So we all just sat there. 5 minutes for middle schoolers probably feels like a half hour. So I rang the bell. And then we went around and go, did we notice boredom? And one student said, I've never realized how peaceful boredom is because it's not that stressful. And we all laughed, but in a way, what we realize is that boredom changes when you become interested in it. It brings energy. So it could be a helpful thing for you to contemplate. If you've had experiences of low energy lately, what gives you energy? Might be doing something that you're interested in. And then the Buddha went on, mindfulness, interest, energy. He says that leads to joy. It's a natural law. Joy is a key aspect in meditation and in awakening. What gives me joy? Is a question I sometimes ask myself. I think it's a relevant question that we all deserve to ask ourselves. And what's the effect of joy? The Buddha says it makes you more tranquil, relaxed. So maybe as a kind of homework for the mindfulness of the Dhammas reflection, besides dropping that question, what's helpful? Maybe after this, you can sit with this question, like, what gives me joy? Especially when it leads to relaxation. Is this something that you can plan for doing? And as a frequent swimmer and frequent meditator, I don't always feel like doing it. But the reason I do it anyway is because it'll give me a sense of joy and ease afterwards. And I'm not the only one. There's this one guy in the pool in Harlem. He always is earlier than me. So when I come in, he's getting ready to go. I always ask him, how are you? And he goes, better now. That's how I feel too after practice. Better now. But the teaching just keeps going on. So the Buddha says, when you do feel more joy, and relaxation, it's natural for your mind to become concentrated, collected, stable. And when I really felt this for myself, and I felt empowered also to teach it, I actually use it a lot in that same middle school class. Because I think in around November, December, they have to do all these tests to go into high school. And they're huge. They take like 3 hours. The kids were telling me, but we're very nervous about these tests because they depend on what high school we can get into. And so I asked them, is there something that you could do that brings joy in your body before you do the test? And with the support of the principal, they were allowed to move more before they would sit down for 3 hours. And we've kind of, as a community, came together on this idea of why does everybody start just with a little bit of mindfulness of breathing before opening that book with all these multiple choice questions? When you need your mind to be more stable, there are patterns of behavior that lead to it. It's connected to joy, tranquility, mindfulness, interest, and energy. Once I met this woman who was at a concert. The concert was by a friend of ours, a mutual friend, so afterwards we talked. I realized while she was listening to the music, she was very still. So I told her, you look like you're meditating. And she goes, I was. So I go, me too, I meditate too. She says, I love meditating with sounds because I have ADHD, she said. But when I listen to sounds that I really love, particular genres of music, my mind gets so concentrated. So when you practice also meditation, notice what anchor helps you. It might sometimes be sounds, but maybe sometimes it's more helpful to anchor into the breath. Again, why meditate is not one answer. And then the last element, a crucial element that leads to awakening according to the Buddha. He called it equanimity. Just bring the Buddha's words in again, that knowing there's equanimity as a factor of awakening in me, then the mind no longer clings or resists. All supported by all these other elements. So if you sometimes want to meditate, why meditate? To feel more balanced or equanimity. What can you do? What is helpful to not be clinging, to allow experiences to come and go? And for me, what's helpful is to notice the changing nature of sounds first, to start there. Sometimes with music. Sometimes I'll go through my Bart meditation. I'll go, is there mindfulness? Is there interest? I go the whole list. That brings me more balance. Sometimes it's helpful to go for a day long of meditation or a retreat. So this fourth and last foundation is about really taking an active stance in your life and in your meditation. You are the driver of the bus. To all boil it down perhaps into this one question from time to time, what's helpful right now? So maybe this is a good moment also to start inviting your wisdom. Why do you meditate? What in your practice, or maybe dealing with a difficulty or an experience in life, has been really helpful? And maybe you want to share your coaching line with us. Maybe there's one of these 7 factors of awakening that speak to you that you might want to focus on. What gives me joy? Just take your time for a little bit and just let me close with the same words I started with. Just as in the great ocean, there's but one taste, the taste of salt. So in this Dhamma, there's but one taste, the taste of freedom. I just want to thank you for your deep listening. And again, inviting you to perhaps share. Why meditate? What's helpful? Jessica and I would love to hear from you and share with the community. I see Peter's. Thank you, Peter.
I love that so much. Peter said, I meditate to dust my brain.
Oh, as a vacuum cleaner fetish guy, it is so true. And also at Peter and everybody else, really pause after you've done your practice, whether it was mindful walking, mindful vacuuming, or sitting. Notice at the end what it's like. Because then again, you see the conditions that lead to how you're feeling right now. It's all conditioned. Oh, thank you, Peter. I'll pause and let you just reflect for a moment.
And Elizabeth posed a question, Bart. Does welcome leave room for I see you, Mara?
I think it does. Just for some of you who might not know, I see you, Mara. Elizabeth is pointing to a teaching from the Buddha where on actually his night of awakening, he was going through a lot of hindrances. And a lot of it had to do with desire and wanting, and also the thought, let me just get up and stop meditating. And then in the Buddhist cosmology, it's kind of said that the craving and the aversion is personified in a being called Mara. And so the Buddha would say, I see you, Mara. I see my own mind making all these projections that are not helpful. And I think if you say, Elizabeth, I see you, Mara. So when you see the pattern that's not helpful, with the voice of welcome, it's very different from the voice with your arms crossed, I see you, Mara. So I think the welcome has that quality of kindness to it, or even like a bold willingness, like that Zen teacher, because he's giving a bold answer to someone who's suffering. Welcome. So I think they go hand in hand, Elizabeth.
Martina said, Bart, I meditate to change my aversive thinking, analyzing mind, into a friendly heart mind.
Oh, vielen Dank, Martina. Thank you. That is, it's so helpful to just kind of connect sometimes with why meditate. And then to see, sometimes there's the aversive thinking, analyzing mind again. Welcome. But also seeing when there's friendliness. I love seeing the mind as weather. Sometimes it's stormy, and sometimes right now in the Netherlands is a clear blue sky. Wow. Thank you, Martina.
I really love these. I Beth said, I meditate to keep the tangle untangled.
Ooh, so much wisdom in that, Beth. Thank you. It kind of really shows that in life we get tangled sometimes, you know? And again, I think bringing welcome to the tangle might keep it from becoming a little tangled, more tangled. Yeah. Thank you, Beth.
With all of your permission, I am really tempted to turn this into a community meditation center carousel for Instagram. So maybe
Yeah.
with initials, but to share some of these really wonderful why we meditate adages. I'll read a comment. Thank you, Beth. Beth said, do it. I'll, I'll read something from Rose. She said, thank you so much for giving to us of the great ocean of your teachings, Bart. Good way to characterize it.
Oh,
Two things kept arising for me. One, a checking question that came this week. What if the mind stopped reaching and let the heart wisdom lead?
mm.
Two, from my deep joy in children's books, Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, Mo Willems. Oh my gosh, love, love those books. That pigeon is like monkey mind behind the wheel of the M5.
Oh, and for those of you who are not in New York, because the M5 is the bus in Manhattan, one of them. Rose, this is so helpful. It again shows that we have insights in so many particular ways. Some of them are like with images. What if you sometimes actively tell yourself, Rose, when the does feel like that big-eyed pigeon from Mo Willems is driving, but you recognize it. It's kind of like I see you, Mara, but your Mara is Mo Willems' pigeon. So again, having that creativity in your practice, and you start to see patterns. Because mindfulness at first is just an information gathering device. Then understanding happens that starts to see all these patterns. That's mindfulness of Dhammas. And then wisdom sometimes just says, what if the mind stopped reaching and let the heart wisdom lead? That's wisdom. So that is sometimes when people ask me, Bart, is there progression in meditation? I think it moves from mindfulness to understanding and to wisdom. And it's not a linear thing. I wish it was. That's kind of how it moves. And so I thank you, Rose, for bringing in that image. And I too am a big fan of Mo Willems.
This is another um, really wonderful image. So Susan said, like Peter, I have an image. I meditate because it's always raining and I need to turn my windshield wipers on so I can see more clearly.
Yeah. I really would. I'm going to use that, Susan, when I don't feel like swimming or practicing or whatever I need to do. I know I can bring on the windshield wipers. The rain is still there, but I see clear. So just knowing that you can switch on the windshield wipers, then you're practicing in the fourth foundation of mindfulness. Thank you, Susan.
So much wisdom in these responses. Lisa said, I meditate to allow silence, stillness, and spaciousness to surround the cravings and aversions so I don't get caught in them. There's something bigger that holds all in loving awareness.
Oh, oh my. Yes. I see the hearts coming there too. Lisa, you're right. And I find it's just so inspiring to hear your words and also to read from other words. And I think that you're having a point here, Jessica. Might actually be really helpful, maybe even in an email to everyone who's on the newsletter, just to help us support to keep practicing. You know, Rosna said, I see you, pigeon. Oh my.
That will be on our merch page, Rose.
Oh yeah. So now you have to make two t-shirts, Jessica. What would kindness do right now? And I see you, pigeon.
Well, there's a third because Rose actually did this beautiful drawing that I am very tempted to ask her to let us share with the community on a t-shirt. So stay
Mm.
tuned. Stay tuned, everybody. Um, I wanted to share,
Uh,
where is it now? What Julie said. Um, when you asked us to ask, what is supporting this state of mind right now? I
mhm.
noticed an expectation for the state of mind to be negative and the support to be some type of past conditioning. But I was pleasantly surprised to find that my tranquil state of mind was supported by my years of meditation and mindfulness. This also revealed a tendency to assume problems.
Beautiful. Seeing that pattern, Julie, is so, so helpful. But also to see that it works. It also makes me think of what Jane wrote. I meditate because it works. And it might sound obvious, but I've spent a lot of time in life focusing on and spending time on things that didn't work. And I was so moved when I was doing that retreat and Devin Barry was teaching, and I just want to keep repeating it also to myself. It's not that we forget how to practice. We forget from time to time how good it is for us. Because mindfulness will protect you. The discerning wisdom will protect you. It does work. Thank you, Julie, and thank you, Jane. I'll read this from Carol. I find mindfulness works when I'm caught up in trying to resolve a problem in my head and notice how I'm feeling. And then I ask myself, what is really happening here? Let go, breathe, see what arises. Stop trying to find an answer. It will come or not. This is again, this, in just these few lines, Carol, you described the fourth foundation of mindfulness. You're seeing a particular pattern of us trying to figure things out. That's actually one that I recognize a lot. Oh, there's figuring out again. And then just ask, how am I feeling? That's the second foundation. You become active in your practice. Even asking something, that's the investigation. What's really happening here? What if I breathe? Can I let go? And then the boldness to stop finding an answer or searching. And maybe trusting that it will come, but also the reality check, it might not. Beautiful. Thank you, Carol.
And returning to Bettina, why do I meditate? And she answered, because I fear my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a cosign on that.
Yeah. Because, I've talked about this last week, and I actually saw in the comments a few elements on it that we didn't have time to talk about. Is that I found it really helpful to notice in my meditation that mindfulness is not what it knows. So the part of you that knows fear is not fearful in a way. Mindfulness is like that mirror. And so that I found extremely helpful to use that insight. Why do I meditate? Also to make friends with my mind, as Joseph said. So what, Bettina, if you would maybe even take it a step further? I meditate because I fear my mind, and maybe ultimately to befriend it. Or like Christine is saying, I meditate to be safe for others and hopefully also myself. Because when I was in that emergency room, the intensive care unit, I was also asking myself, what would make me feel safe? For me, knowing and being in the present moment makes me feel safe. Every time when I know I'm mindful, I'm not saying that I'm completely like safe, but it does feel like a homecoming. Thank you for sharing that so honestly, Bettina.
Mhm. And I'm aware of the time, so Bart, I'll share one more from Caesar,
Mm-hmm.
who said, I meditate to actually see that I'm more than the voice in my head, and then I let the voice be, and even sometimes have compassion for that so hard working voice.
Oh, oh yeah. Yeah. All I can keep saying, Caesar, is yes. Yes. That really sums it up. And I just want to take a moment to thank you all for your practice. And I really hope if you have time to stay a little longer, we'll really try to make the groups not more than 3 or 4 people. And to maybe hear more from one another. And before handing it to you, Jessica, also kudos to you for being so flexible with the iPad and everything. Sending lots of love from Netherlands.
Received, received. So, friends, we will open up the breakout rooms in just a moment. So please do stay with us if you can. And do keep an eye out. In a couple of days, we are now starting to send a follow up email after each of our Sunday gatherings. So there will be a link there for you to access the recording of today's teaching. And very soon, also our shiny new YouTube channel. So we'll also be able to share the video recordings of our teachings, thanks to the generosity of a dear member of this Sangha, Vin, who has been working with me behind the scenes to bring this vision to life. And the vision is compliments of Jennifer from our board. So, you know,
Oh,
we're each contributing our verse here, but excited to be sharing that with you all soon. And stay tuned for our first CMC Instagram carousel. I am definitely going to play with this and share it more broadly, because there is so much wisdom in this community and so much value in sharing with each other. So thank you all for joining us. I will pass it over to you, Bart, to
thank you.
close us out and
Yes,
offer a dedication of merit for our practice together.
yes. I forgot one thing, Jessica, and I hope you still have just a little bit left if you have to go soon. We're starting a new theme next week. We're going to be talking about the 3 characters of existence, the 3 marks of existence. They're the ultimate Buddhist list. There are 3 of them. And next week we have a new guest speaker. He's a dear friend. He's a monk from Canada. His name is Bante, which means monk or friend, teacher, Viveka. And he will talk about impermanence. And then 2 weeks later, we have another guest teacher. His name is Matthew Brent Silver. And so I really hope that you can join for that as well. But for now, just pausing for a moment, letting all the words settle, and just trust that you know best what to do right now before I dedicate our practice to all beings, just for a few seconds. May the practice we share today be of benefit, well-being, and safety for all beings, including ourselves, including our minds. May there be peace. May there be peace. May there be peace.